Want to know what to do when your life is met with big setbacks? Want to know what to do to become a happier person? Well, stick around because those are the topics that we'll be talking about in this episode. Hi, I'm Mikhail Pitsner. I'm also known as the Automated Millionaire, and I'm the founder and creator of all the programs, the business programs and the coaching behind the Automated Millionaire, and which you can avail yourself to at theautomatedmillionaire.com. In this episode, we'll be talking about those setbacks that comes into life, and not least, what are we going to do about them. As individuals, we'll be met with setbacks from time to time, both in our private life and certainly also in business. In fact, as entrepreneurs, we are kind of like putting ourselves out there in front of challenges. And that means with the challenges, that it also means that sometimes after we've had some successes and so on, we might be met with big challenges. Or even before we even begin starting a new business, for instance, and so on, we might be met with a lot of challenges and sometimes some dramatic setbacks. So case in point, the other day here, I logged into the website. I was going to update a few things and so on. And then I noticed I couldn't log in. Now, it wasn't a big deal because I could just say, okay, I forgot the passwords and so on. But I knew that my password wasn't forgotten. I knew that my computer also remembers the password, and my LastPass app and so on would remember it and all that. So it just stuck out to me that there's something wrong here. So I went into the back end of things and I saw that there was a change of my username. So all straight away, I just knew that, okay, this meant that this site has somehow been hacked, and there was a malware or gate open somewhere in there, and somebody had gone in and changed it. So I went in, I found out a way to delete that user, update my password and all those things and so on. And then I was going to like clean out some more files to make sure that any piece of malware, any piece of security flaw was going to be eradicated and so on. But before I got so far, the following morning when I logged in, or when I opened up the website, I got the white screen of death. So I don't know if you ever run a website, but for sure those who have done it or those who run websites and so on, they will see sometimes you'll get a completely blank screen. You go into the right URL, that shows up fine. Even my favicon showed up. You know, the little icon that you might have for the tab on your browser and so on, that showed up. But the entire website was all blank. And to make matters worse, all my websites were blank because they are basically on the same account. So yeah, that raises a little note to me saying, oh, maybe I need to split them up. Maybe I need to have an account for each. It'll be more money, but it'll at least be safer so that if one goes down, it's only that one. At any rate, I went in and I was like, okay, the whole place was down. I thought it was actually because I was transferring some elements over to having, a security, a Cloudflare in between it and so on. So I'm pointing what's called the DNS servers. I'm pointing where they are looking up the URL and all that and where it's pointing to and so on. So I thought it had all to do with that. And that probably afforded the hackers, so to speak, some extra time to kind of like carry out their work. Now, at the end of the day, what happened is that we looked into the files and all the registries and it was all wiped out. Everything was blank. There were no files in there, no file tree, no documents or anything. Now, thankfully, I do have backups of all the sites and so on. And they're actually currently, as I'm shooting this video, they're still making a reinstallment of the sites. The great thing is, seeing that I go in on the site pretty much every day, I kind of knew that when this happened. And so I know that what date my password was changed. So that's a critical date for sure. And it just so happened that the big update, the big backup was run the day before, or actually something like 38 hours before that time. So the great fact is that I probably have a site that's fairly clean. I'll probably run through some malware check and so on once it's up and running again. But Long story short, as you can imagine, this is really upsetting. It's first of all, it just wipes out like 1 or 2 days. It removes all access for my sales and all the promotion and so on. It doesn't remove my clients' access to their material because that's on a different platform altogether. So thankfully, that's all safe and sound. But from a marketing point of view and from any ads I might be running or any outreach that I might be doing and so on, or any people that I might be in touch with, it's natural for me to say, well, go to this site and have a look at this, or hey, I have some materials for it, I'll send it to you and it's right here, or send the link or something. And all of that is kind of like, well, it's in a limbo state right now. But it's really, really, as you can imagine, truly upsetting. But as frustrating as it is, I very quickly realized that, well, you know what? I can swear and curse over it as much as I want. I can cry over it as much as I can want. I can feel as sorry for myself as much as I want. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that I have landed in a situation. I probably will have to do some more security strengthening of the website. I definitely will. Following this, so that I hopefully will avoid getting in there again. But right here, right now, that doesn't help me. And as much as it's really annoying and stressful and hurtful and stealing my time and time that I really would be rather spending on something more productive, then there's nothing I can do about that. So instead of really being really aggravated about that, I just, I kind of like came to peace with it and say, well, what can I do? And so that's again the lesson here. It's like instead of being really aggravated or really upset or something about the big upset you have, then you'd rather have to move towards it, towards the situation with the mindset of like constructively, what can I do? If this door is closed, let me find another way. If all the doors are closed, let me see how I can break through the doors, go under them, over them, under them, around them, or something. So as frustrating as this is, you kind of have to make sure that you come with the mindset of saying, well, I cannot do anything about what has happened, but what can I do now which moves me forward? What do I need to do now? So there's like something that you might need to do, and then other things like, well, what can I do constructively to move me forward? In this connection, I like to read aloud a small passage from a prayer. I believe they call it the Serenity Prayer. A lot of people might know this prayer already. I just read a small little passage because that's completely befitting what we're talking about here. So it says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. When I came across this back in the day, in my reading and so on, I really thought, what, this is so brilliant, because it's like, well, whatever has, for instance, what has happened in the past, you can't change that. It is what it is. If you had a tough childhood, or if you had an upset in, when back in the day in 2008 on the subprime crisis, I basically went from being very wealthy and pretty much got all wiped out, and then some, had a huge debt after the fact, coming into 2009, 2010 with huge amount of debts. And as much as it really was hurtful, and as much as it was like really putting me in predicaments and challenges and challenging situations and so on, then there wasn't anything I could do about the fact that it had happened, and about the fact that I had placed my money in such a situation that, all my investments basically wiped me out, because everything just went, down the drain during the subprime crisis around September of 2008. So there wasn't much I could do about that. But I was left with having to kind of like face the fact that, well, these are the facts, and I now have a big debt. I need to find out a way how to resolve the debt. So instead of being really upset about everything and focusing on that, I got focused on like the constructive mindset, kind of like digging deep into myself to find how am I going to dig out of that. And I think this prayer here is exactly that. Accept what you cannot change, and have the courage to do what you can influence. And then also have the clarity of mind, and the insight to understand and know the difference. I also like to read up another passage here. It's I'm probably gonna mess up the name. Epictetus. I believe he was a slave back in the Roman Empire days, and eventually kind of came out of his slavery. And I believe he actually became a very trusted advisor to one of the Caesars. That's my recollection, anyways. Now, he writes, the chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can clearly say to myself which are external, not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself, to the choices that are my own. So bottom line, you get the gist, but what I want to wrap this up with is saying that if you can focus on the things that you can have an influence over, and then you can direct your own attitude and your own activities towards that, and then accept everything that's out of your control, I truly believe that you'll not only just make more progress for yourself, but you actually end up happier. If, on the other hand, that you focus on all the pain that has happened to you, whether it was self-inflicted from, placing all your money in highly volatile or highly geared investments, just like I did, or some other thing happened to you because of what you did, whether it was for that or whether it was some influence or setback that came to you out of your control, out of something that you had placed yourself in, well, if you're focusing on that, you will take the role of the victim. And you'll not only feel very sorry for yourself, but you'll actually be a victim. Not because of something that just happened to you out of your control, but really because you're assuming that whole role. If you can kind of park that, the upset that really happened to you, take some lessons for it, and then go about your life in a constructive manner, focusing on, okay, what next? What do I do now? I'm now in this situation. Or my childhood was so and so bad for whatever reason. Well, what can I learn from it and go forward in life with? How can I make it better for myself going forward in a constructive way? How can I create the lifestyle that I want, and the life and the value set in my life to carry on my life in a good and constructive way? How can I ensure, if, for instance, you had a bad childhood, how can I ensure that my children would have a better childhood? How can I raise them in a safe and sound environment that's encouraging and promoting them to grow and have a good life themselves and have good value sets? These, I believe, are elements of how you stay happy and also really stay productive. This was Mikael Pitsner, also known as the Automated Millionaire. I thank you so much for your time. I hope this was valuable to you, and I hope maybe it will encourage you, if you're right now with that big setback that you met with and so on, that you can take your life and kind of like say, well, how can I be more constructive? I know I had this setback. It is what it is. I can't maybe flee from it, but maybe there's something that I can do, that I do have an influence on, that do have a control over, so I can take the next step and get a result that's more productive for where I want to head. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you so much for tuning in here. I appreciate you so much, and I hope that I'll see you in future episodes.